One. Folks, welcome back to the iHealth Channel, iHealth Radio, the NBC Network, with your host, Hurricane H. Today, new show, great discussion with my guest. My guest today is Shruti Trivedi, a transformation coach, speaker, and former senior IT leader who now helps high achieving moms and professionals heal from stress and life's toughest moments. After more than 13 years leading complex transformation at organizations like Fannie Mae, Deloitte, Shruti realized that true change isn't just about systems, it's about people, emotions, and resilience. Today, through Tulsi Heal's live coaching and her work in financial planning, she combines mindset, emotional wellness, and practical strategy to help people feel grounded, confident, and fully aligned in both life and career. Please welcome Shruti Trivedi to the show. Shruti, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for your kind words and introduction. It just feels so special. So thank you so much. I'm
Well,
honored to be
you are special.
here.
You have to feel that way. I mean, it's the first. Everybody, I do. It's funny that you said that. Sometimes people like feel that it's difficult. Everyone is super special, and we have to learn to just accept that. This happened to me one time. Somebody said, you got to learn how to get credit. I'm like, well, I'm just being nice, and trying to be modest. Like, no, just take credit. So,
Yeah,
so I learned to do that, and I tell people, just hey, take it. You deserve, what you are, who you are, where you are. I mean, that's your work. So hey, congratulations on being special. you know,
thank you so
yeah.
much. Yeah, yeah,
well,
that's very
well,
true, whatever you said.
no, but it is true. I mean, it's not. I mean, people sometimes they have a difficulty accepting that, but everyone is unique. There's only one you. There's only one
Yeah,
me. There's no clones of us. They haven't made them yet.
yeah.
and
As of now,
I,
we can say,
I think even if they did, they would be off. They would not be exactly us because everybody's got their own signature, their own flavor, right?
yeah,
So, but Shruti, it's a lot of stuff I just talked about. Like I mean, that brief introduction is not going to do you justice, but it's like first of all, the world of IT, and I mentioned Deloitte, I mentioned some of these companies, Fannie Mae. I mean, that's a lot of work out there. And then coaching professionals, moms, high achievers. That's like, a whole transition. But I do want to, you and I we briefly talked about this. I do want to spend some time on the story behind it, because a lot of folks, they begin their life somewhere
mm,
but they went up something somewhere else. I can tell you, I didn't change my career, but I've actually technically I did like at least a couple of times, or at least I had two or three at the same time. Three different things I was working on at all times. Even now, I'm doing consulting. I'm still in the health insurance. I'm in the media. I mean, but that's the thing. Like all of us, we have something like that. Well, some of us may not, but maybe they'll entertain that at a certain point of their life. So let's talk about that journey. Shruti, the beginning, and the success story, and then like what time's up. Was it COVID? Was it something? I mean, because a lot of people have changed their lives during COVID. But again, it's an interesting concept. So let's talk about that, and then maybe we can help some people out there understand what it is to really just grow up in your life and your career path.
absolutely. I can walk you through my childhood, and because
Oh,
even
okay, we can go back. That's good.
going up to IT, it's changed over time. So since childhood, I'd been intrigued by psychology. I just never had the confidence and the courage to convince my parents that I wanted to pursue art. Um, at age 15, I suffered from an epilepsy attack, and then my studies suffered a lot. And so both my parents are doctors, so their expectation was like, it would be nice if I can be a doctor too. However, because of the seizures and missing classes, I didn't do well in my 12th grade, which is an important grade to decides your college. And then I did my undergrad in what you will not believe is zoology.
Oh,
And after taking up zoology again, I didn't love animals as much apart from the golden retriever love that I have for dogs. But then I'm like, I don't want to do my master's in zoology, so I was a bit clueless. So started working at a call center to just start generating revenue. And um, and then within a year, this marriage proposal came, and I got married at age 22. So I migrated from Mumbai to the US, and I'm here in Virginia. And the World Education Services here evaluated my undergrad degree to be a high school diploma because bachelor's in India is 3 years versus which is 4 years here, and they didn't know how to evaluate the degree. So I was like, I have a high school diploma. They've not even given me, they would just give me a few credits here and there. So I was again very clueless and frustrated. Then I took a dental assisting course. I worked as a dental assistant for about a year, and I was expecting with my first child. And then I just took a career break. And then a couple of years later, since I had some background of computers, I brushed up my skills and I started working in IT in 2012. And that's where my IT journey began. And then fast forward to 2020, like you said, COVID, right? Many things happened. It was again during COVID times where I was like, people were dying really. Like we lost a few near and dear ones. I'm like, do I want to work and like die one day? Like this, whatever I'm doing for 9 years now. It was a profound thought. And suddenly I'm like, no, I want to do something else. I had also changed jobs during that time, and then in um, I had my own realization, like I want to do something else in psychology. So I tried to apply to masters in mental health counseling, and unfortunately, I got rejected twice from the college, and that's where coaching came my way. Like my therapist, I was taking therapy as well. I will be talking about that part of the story, why I took therapy. My therapist mentioned that why don't you look into life coaching? It's a similar path. It's of course different, but there is some overlap with that. And then I got trained into life coaching. I took my ICF credentials. I registered my business, and I fell in love with it. And last year I got laid off, and then I decided I want to just full time invest all of my time towards coaching, and that's what I do now. So, with the transformation piece, now I want to talk a little bit about my personal life. So, I'm super blessed with three beautiful children. I have two girls, 15 and 11, and a 7-year-old boy. However, I've also lost three babies. And it's just that part of my life has been the most toughest, um, and it, it's just it's something that took me more than 11 years to even seek help. So I lost my first baby after my first daughter was born. I was expecting again, and I lost the baby at 9 weeks because there was no heartbeat. And then a few years later, after my middle daughter was born, I was expecting again with identical twin boys. And due to some complications, I lost them at 23 weeks. Um, so those three losses just broke me apart. But in general, the society just tells you to move on, to heal, time will heal, and phrases like that, and dismisses pregnancy loss casually, I would say, unfortunately. Like there was no heartbeat. It's okay. Just you you're young. I was 27 at that time. You can produce again. You can have another baby, or you already have one. It's okay. So those are the things that happened with me, and that's the reason it took me 11 years. So 2011 I had my first loss. 2017 I had my loss of my twins. 2022 is where I finally decided, because I was still going through a lot. Like I used to have panic attacks, like like unexpected breakdowns. Even after having my son the following year, I was like, initially I felt okay, everything will be fine, but it was not happening. And that's where I experienced my own transformation. And then I decided to just help others with that, because I know this is a topic that's highly unspoken about, and I want to normalize that conversation.
Listen to you. There's a lot that I mean, you. This is a book story. We could actually literally put a book, a movie, and it will fulfill a lot of angles, right? And it is a story of transformation. I mean, you do transformation coaching now, but uh, your whole life has been transformed, from one side to the other, to the other, to the other. And again, I guess I was right, to really start with this piece of the discussion, because I think a lot of audiences, watching, people watching or listening, they can somehow relate to where you've been and what you went through. And there's also a big component about you being a mother, and the loss and all the stuff, and the resilience, and the struggle. That, I mean, it's not easy for someone to actually lose their kids, and especially it's, you're a mother, you carry, like, guys would never understand that. And I, some people are like, oh, what's wrong with you, Hurricane? You listen, I'm a father, I have three kids, but you know what? I didn't carry them in my belly. It's different. It's the emotions, the connection is one thing, right? Like my mom and I, we had a different bond because, I was, with her the first, um, I was the only child. So, that connection was very, strong. And so, but before we get deeper in this discussion, just I want to go through the storyline here, or the timeline. So first of all, there's a lot of things you said, that are powerful for people to understand. One is the idea that you eventually came to the States, and you had a problem with the, I guess, the education
Mm,
transfer, right? And that's a problem for a lot of people, because to your point, in some parts of the world, a bachelor's is less than 4 years. I mean, in the U.S., they say it's a 4-year degree. But really, even a bachelor's in the US is not really 4 years. I mean, sometimes people take a sabbatical. They don't do full time. They can take 5 or 6 years sometimes, right? Some people do extensive and they do double time, and they can do it in 3 years, even in the States. So it's kind of like a challenging question there. For those people that are in the education business, I mean, it's pretty open how you can, structure your courses. You can, if you're really into it and full time, you can do, I mean, 12th grade, I think, is what they call full time, but you can go beyond if you wanted to. You can do summer, you can do all stuff, so you can actually expedite stuff. So it is interesting that you were not able to actually get that 100% transfer to the credits, and then they challenge you with that. So that's something that people need to know, that it can be difficult. When you come to the States, anywhere else, when you go, your education is key, but sometimes you have to figure out a way to do it. I mean, to be honest with you, like, it is a difficult part, and I've heard this before, where people were not able to, they had to either start again from scratch. I mean, by the way, I hear this a lot in the healthcare. I mean, a lot of people can have a doctor's degree
mm,
and come into the States, and you got to start fresh from the beginning, right? You can be a dentist somewhere, and you still have to start again and do the education as is, because they don't allow, or they don't accept those the degrees from different countries. So it can be very frustrating, and sometimes it leads to people to change their lifestyle and transform to a different whole career. As a matter of fact, I've had people who were doctors overseas, and when they came to the States, they actually could not become doctors. They literally can, in their countries, they can write prescription, they can actually do all kind of stuff and practice medicine. But in the States, they were just another person with a lot of knowledge in biology. That's about it. And because it's also expensive, they could not,
mm,
finalize that transfer to a US degree, if you want to call that. So that's a big deal. One thing that you said that's very interesting. A lot of people will probably, question or have, something about it. Now, it is somewhat personal, but you said that a marriage got up in front of you, and it happened. People may not understand that. I mean, different cultures, different ways. Some people have this feeling about, like, oh, arranged marriages versus not arranged marriages, all stuff. First of all, you didn't say that, but people can assume that, right? People can say, well, the marriage came and you took, I mean, you could have met someone for a couple of years and then just the marriage happened to be there, right? But some people need to also know that different ways to look at marriage, and it works for a lot of folks, that especially overseas in a lot of different parts of the world. Very easy, you meet someone, you don't have to have 10 years a relationship where you live together to actually do that, right? So this is not a show about relationships, but the idea is it can happen to a lot of folks, and it's still good, it works, not a problem. The actual migration or immigration to the States, that's a lot of, people sometimes they don't realize. I mean, listen, I'm an immigrant too, right? So I came from Morocco to the US, and with a dream, and and I did what I had to do to make it. I mean, it's not easy, because you have to find your way, to find your career path, to make, you know I guess maybe double time, triple time work, right? Because you want to meet the expectations that are in the ground. It's not easy. And, and I was in New York. So, I mean, you're in Virginia, not too far. I mean, you're in the DC area. I'm in New York. So in New York, I mean, it's a crazy world, right? You got to get in. It's dog eats dog, and you got to make it happen. It's a tough place to be, right? So those things are all, I guess, part of who we are and what makes us as humans. And so these experiences can make you stronger. So your struggles that came upon later with you having, well, first of all, you had your kids, so that's good. But then again, you had these conditions of loss. Now that can be very devastating. Now, the one thing that I can extract from there, and correct me if I'm not wrong, um, you were in the work business and in a stressful environment, and you've tried different things, and you worked here, you worked there. I know corporate can be very stressful. Now, was there any indicator or correlation between the loss and the lifestyle or the stress levels that could be, created by the workspace? Is that something that actually you've experienced yourself that you're actually now trying to prevent other women and moms from having, because that is a big deal, and it's a very stressful place to be. Listen, I've been in leadership, so I had male and female employees, and mothers are mothers. They have expectations, they have pregnancies. It's different. It's not the same when it comes to those things, and so you have to accommodate differently, right? You have to ensure that they get, that the stress levels are different too. Now, we were in a high tense, place. Stressful work, sales is very stressful, right? It becomes very difficult, but it does impact people if you get the wrong leadership, if you get the wrong company, culture. Those things can be very devastating, right? So let's talk about that part, and the impact of it. And is there a relationship? I try to cover some of these pointers because as people watching, listening, these are things that sometimes we have to can just be aware of, and we don't have to always think that it's the same thing because someone is, you're born in the US. Okay, so it's you, all you know is what you know, right? Your system is your system. But people that are overseas, they may have a different lifestyle, different ways of operating. When they come to the States, it's not the same. So they have to face a lot of challenges that most people take for granted. My kids, for example, they take stuff for granted because they're there, everything's cool. I'm American, I'm cool. I go to school, nothing to worry about. I just do my life. Right? When you come from overseas, a very different place to be, right? And by the way, that's everywhere. You immigrate anywhere, you're gonna have a change of culture, of habits, of behavior, impact, and so on and so forth. So let's talk about the component of work related, phase that you were there, the stress level, the demand of the job, and whether that had to do with the health, I guess, condition that led to the loss.
So yeah, stress was there. I was in operations. So if you know operations, being on call, doing releases, weekend releases, 36-hour weekends. I've always in my entire IT journey, I've always been in operations, which has been stressful. And my health, I would say, I don't know how it directly, of course, it could impact the health in various forms with frustration, how I'm treating my kids at home, and things like that, right? So it comes in various forms too. One thing that I think I realized that after my loss, when I went back to, when I was not even going back to work, within a week, I got a call from the HR. It was an apology call, like they're just offering some, you know, condolences and sorry for your loss. And then the call just flipped in a minute saying, when are you coming back to work? And
Mm.
that I felt was like, what just happened? And there was a gap. After I went back to work, I think many of the members where I was working were not aware that I experienced a loss. So people came up to me and said, how are your twins doing? How are the babies doing? And I went blank for a second and I'm like, they didn't make it. And then they would leave. They would not know how to react to that. So that was the communication gap I felt. I had told my manager was amazing. I told him, I want, give me a lot of work. And he actually told me that, do you really want this much work? But like, you need rest. And I'm like, no, I don't want to think about anything else. So he gave me the projects so that I could be busy. But with the other management and leaders around, because they didn't know how to, what to say, how to say. It was like completely professional, like as if nothing happened. And that's the gap I felt like, to managers and leaders, to the HRs, there is still a gap where they don't know if a person has experienced a loss, how to welcome them back, or it's not even welcome because it's not happy, but it's how to get them back and have some gentle check-ins, have how to communicate. And that actually is something that I'm working on. I'm trying to develop a workshop for managers and leaders and try to see how, if I can fill that gap, because it has to be very gentle. And most of the times they don't know what to say, or if they say, they're scared to say the wrong thing and hurt, so they would rather not say anything and treat like. And then as a mom you're like, don't you care? Like, and then you also try to convince yourself, okay, fine, I'll just focus on my work and I'll not talk. But there is that internal conflict as well, where you want to talk but at the same time you don't want to talk. So many mixed feelings. But I think that miss is still missing at the workspace, where people really don't know what to say.
Well, it's amazing that you said that because I think, I say around the world we probably have the same problem, but I know at least for a fact in the States, you work for a company, I don't care how big they are, they might have maybe a week orientation, that's if you're lucky. And even in the orientation, it's really more processes and, policy and so on and so forth, acquaintances, meeting different departments, understanding the workflows, blah, blah, blah. But there's very little. Maybe we talk about the basics, the HIPAAs in the healthcare, for example, the sexual harassment, the laws that are, the labor laws that are in place to make sure that people are conform to the rules and they kind of sign the documents that they've received that message. But really, there's not enough discussion about how to, conflict of interest, handling people, mental, case, work, when it comes to losses and people lose their parents, their kids, and so on and so forth, or, all kind of stuff, emotions. I mean, we have COVID, for example, happened. A lot of people, did not have access to the right mental health, assistance, if you want to call it that. And this is actually a fact. I mean, I've had multiple shows, and these discussions, kind of always are there. Even the type of leadership, right? Not, I mean, you're lucky that you said your manager was more understanding, but not everybody was empathic, right? Not everybody was, the empathy part of the work, relationships sometimes is missing, and there's I mean there's some work, I guess, towards it. There's a work in progress right now, I'd say. A lot of companies are seeing the value of doing this, especially with the newer generation, because they're more vocal and stuff like that. It's funny because generations also have shifted.
Yeah.
In my days, you were just told what to do. You worked, because you were kind of almost robotic, right? They tell you get a job, you better listen, you do your thing, and that's about it. Now, there is a good piece to that, and I can, because sometimes job got to get done, right? So it works. But when we do it, and that's like we just did a show about it, command and control, like, the firm, leadership, fist, right? And then there is the new version where you have to be empathic, you have to actually care. There's a human centric, space there, right? You can still achieve more by not losing stuff. But you're right. There are people that don't know how to, react to somebody's loss, right? And I think we all are human. Sometimes we're not trained on those things, right? Nobody's, here's what you have to do in life. You're gonna meet people. You're gonna have some losses. This is how you got to do it. Nobody gives us that training in life, right? So kind of figure it out ourselves. But there is also expectations. To your point, there's a confusion. How do I take this? Do I just take their stuff and, or I don't want to think about it, because sometimes whenever someone says, "Oh my God, I'm sorry to hear that," you feel a little, something about the emotions are rising up again. Now you're conflicted, like you want to thank them, but you probably also like, "Oh, I just want to forget about this." Of course you're not going to forget, but like that whole feeling that it's like, what do I do here? And you're in the middle, and every time is a constant reminder. And so those are things. And very little places that, at least that I know of, have some sort of formal training. So I love the idea that you're using some of that personal experience in the work that you do now. And even I have to commend you for taking the chance. And because I mean, when you go to business on your own, there is a chance that you take. But it's a beautiful place to be. And most people will not understand it unless they do that. I mean, what's the worst that can happen, right? I'm gonna succeed. See, you got to think about it this way. You can't think about it like the other way, right? So you got to make it work, and just go forward. It takes one step, for success. But you took that leap of faith. You created your stuff. You're using some of your personal experience because you've emotionally explored that, right? Now you know what you had, so therefore you can talk about it. You can certainly help others understand, what you were going through, and maybe you can give them the solutions, which you actually are working on. You mentioned the workshop. I think that would be an awesome workshop that every company should explore because, listen, I think the ratio, male, female in the workplace, I think it's pretty much equal, if not, maybe overlap, in this in today's age, right? So I don't think there is anything, which means there's more need. And by the way, this is not just about women. I would say even men have their emotions and things like that, and sometimes they don't know how to approach. And even when they approach, somebody else, they have to be able to understand how to speak and how to say it, and so on and so forth. We hear this politically correct terminology is very common in the workspace. You be careful what you say, how to say it, and so on and so forth. But again, it's one thing to tell people that way, and the other one is to understand how it all works and what's the impact. There's not a lot. Again, there's not a lot of mental work that's being done in the workspace. Although we spend most of our lives in work. I mean, at the offices, or sometimes you spend more time at an office than you spend at home, right? So thank you for sharing that, and for the idea that you are building something like that. So now, uh, you know, IT. I mentioned Fannie Mae, Deloitte. These are very intense places. And by the way, I love what you said about the idea. Okay, how you feeling? Good. Okay, when you coming back to work, it sounded more like it's a courtesy call than really a check,
Yeah.
on your call. So let's talk about that. Like, why people are doing that based on your expertise now. What can we do to change that? Because I think that's a problem, especially in big places. I mean, these are names I mentioned that are huge. They should have a lot more formation, in terms of their staff, and really get them to a point where they can understand how to operate. And frankly, having that call does not really serve well, because to me, you can read through that easily if you're going through a tough time. Like someone's like, the next thing, like it's like, so how things going? Everything good? Okay, okay. Well, when are you back? Are you gonna be back Monday? you know, that doesn't sound too good. And I get the business aspect of things,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, business is there, but there are, I have to say, we have great laws compared to a lot of places. Maybe not. I think Europe has a lot more laws when it comes to labor and restrictions and things like that. They have a little bit more rigid stuff. We have a little bit more leeway, but at least we have some labor law that protects you to a degree if you know how to navigate it. So let's talk about that. Working big companies, a lot of pressure. Went through all this stuff. Now you're in this space trying to help the professionals to get away from the struggle and the stress and emotional overwhelm.
So, I mean, I think with what you mentioned, why, right? The why the conversation is mainly like because of just don't know why, how to answer that question. The conversation could be as simple, and people overthink it. That's one more thing. Like people overthink what to say, and like you said, the companies have their own their rules and regulations, right? You have to abide by those, like say certain set of words. But in my experience, silence sometimes is the most powerful, or just having a tone of voice saying, just checking in on you. That conversation could just even go in a different direction. Like, I'm really sorry for your loss. I cannot even imagine what you're going through now. And I just wanted to check in with you. Even pause for some time to even, it might be an awkward pause, but just pause. And then you can relay that conversation into, not directly like, when are you coming back to work? But it in a different sentence. like, so I think that's the conversation just could change a little bit, and it would be more empathetic to the mother listening on the other end. Like, okay, this person really cares. So I think there's just that missing piece right now. And for the mother who is being told, For the bereaved mom who's being told by the society, like, just move on and everything, she's already feeling stressed, that whatever her feelings are dramatic. And like in my experience, whenever I had these breakdowns and the panic attacks, I used to feel, why am I overreacting? And those are the times you're meanest to yourself. Like, I used to rush to the bathroom and have this breakdown, and then I'm like, what's your problem, Shruti? And I don't want to use all the cuss words that I've used on myself, but the meanest, I've never been this meanest to anyone in my life, the way I had treated myself. And then I'm like, just stop this right now. You have a presentation to a director, so just wipe this off, get out of here, and go and do your presentation. So taking that pressure for that woman, like, how much she's going to just suffer, like make herself suffer, because you have to have that mask on. And you're given these titles: the brave mom, the strong mom, the rock solid mom. I even have a fridge magnet that calls super mom. And sometimes it feels suffocating, where I'm like, I don't want all these titles. Just let me be human. I i don't care about these titles. I just want to be vulnerable at times. And I think we carry so much pressure not to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, not to allow ourselves to feel. And that's just so bad. And that's the reason I want to create that space for moms, for women who have experienced the loss, that this is a space you can be vulnerable. I'm building a framework which is called a 3 A's framework, called acknowledge, allow, align. And this is, for now, this is what I can come up with. Like, I think this is going to be a big
Way.
framework. In my experience, this is how I break down into, like, acknowledging is just acknowledge your feelings, what your body is trying to tell you, because you dismiss your feelings immediately. Like, when you feel like crying, immediately wipe off your tears is the first thing. I mean, I was joking with this with some other person. Like, what is a courtesy when somebody cries? You offer them a box of tissues, and even it's considered a good gesture, but we were actually debating on that. Like, it is in a way that you need to stop, take this tissue and stop crying. We are telling that person indirectly, like, you need to stop crying now. Now, person who is laughing, we won't offer them anything like laugh your heart out, right? But when it comes to a different emotion, we instantly, and that's considered a very good gesture, like when you're giving somebody tissues. But indirectly, it also means that you want that person to stop crying, because you don't want drama, you don't want those emotions to be released. But at that time, that's what your body wants to do. And I think that is what we need to let the body release that emotion fully and empty it out. And that's why I think for me, this framework really helped me when I was going through my own therapy, and I then kind of break it down in my own words, like allowing myself to feel whatever I'm able to feel. And that just feels like you're venting out. It could be so many different forms, like even calling a person and just vomiting out whatever we have, right? We do our physical cleansing. I always bring this example: we brush our teeth every day, no matter what if we don't brush our teeth for 2 days or a week? It'll start stinking. What do we do with our thoughts, with our negative thoughts? We love to store them and accumulate and don't do the cleansing at all. And then it turns super toxic, where we either get a breakdown, we either are frustrated, we just yell at somebody, but that's like a volcano erupting, because we don't cleanse our minds every day. So my I think it's necessary to cleanse our minds every day too, just like we brush our teeth, cleanse our minds, do some form of it might be mindfulness, meditation, or so many different things, like even venting out, but journaling, so many different forms that you can do, but release those emotions. I think that's what the allow portion of the framework is. And then the align one is mainly towards honoring your loss, because it's extremely important how you're told to initially like move on, but if you move forward with your loss is where it makes meaning. So in my case, it's my business name actually. I can bring that up. Tulsi is a holy Indian basil plant that we pray to in Hindu culture. And for a couple of years now, as part of honoring, I started off with planting two Tulsi plants in two identical pots to honor my boys. So for me, it's they bloom every summer and they go back in fall. So it's just been a meaningful connection for me to stay with them. Uh, this year I started the third for my third baby as well. So I just did that last week. I took my three pots, planted some tulsi seeds, so I'll be seeing them blooming in summer. And when I was naming my business, it this name just clicked. I remember standing on my deck thinking about a name for my business, and it just clicked. I was looking at those plants and I'm like, okay, it has to be something with Tulsi. And then Tulsi heals just makes it like it's healed me. It's given meaning to my life, the way I honor my babies now. And now they are connected with me forever. They're in my background right now as part of this meeting, and they are going to be forever connected with me. And nothing better could be a name for my business. And I think they are also a sure reason why I'm in this field today because of the experiences that I had in my life. So it just makes it very meaningful and beautiful for me and gives me a purpose of life.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and actually, it is catchy, and it's like it's meaningful to you specifically because it actually did provide that relief, that happiness for you. And so, yes, I mean, it's a good space, and it's a catchy name for the business because now you're taking that on the road to help other people heal, and it works. Well, so just I want to go back to what you said about the example of the you're crying, and people sometimes have they want to show that they care, and they offer the t-shirt, right? So the problem again, as I said, we don't have formal training on these things, right? It's really that's what it is. Like, how do we deal with these things? Like, how do we, when someone comes in to you with their personal issues, home, it could be anything, not just necessarily loss. It could be people lose family members, or they can just have their own problems, right? You can be struggling financially. You can be struggling, with your kids. You can have, something happens in the family. Many things can happen, right? And we don't know how to deal with this. You said something actually earlier when like you're supposed to be presenting in this presentation to a director, and you just want to be you, and you had this debate with yourself, like you said. But it's funny because now here's the thing, that director or whoever you present it to, they probably don't even know what happened to you. And that's the other thing, because companies are very picky about, selective about information. They do not share that information in public, so it stays there. But technically, this is my own say, if you're interacting with people, your health, physical and mental, is going to impact whatever that entity that you're going to meet with. So it might be good to actually have the people that you actually are working with at least understand your state, so to a degree they now again, someone can say, well, they will probably just overreact or react the wrong way, or maybe they will actually produce, a reaction to you. So it's a very difficult place to be. I think something has to be done around companies where they can say, or set up, I would say, a system in place to assist with these conditions that happen at work. Because let's put it this way again, until we have robots working, humans have human factors, human feelings, human reactions. It's normal. And I don't know, like we call it human resources, but human resources typically are more for the operations and to protect the company and protect the actual, really the company, not even the employees. Most people think that the HR is for you. Well, HR is typically not for the actual employee. If you do something wrong, guess what? They're the first ones to go after you, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, listen, I get it. As long as it's in the interest of the company. Now, yes, do you have recourse to them? Yes, of course you can go back and complain. We hear stories, but if you don't document things, for example, and so on and so forth, could be a problem. But like in this case, in what your example is, I think people have to be aware. I think your work is going to make a difference. You're definitely going to, adapt these things. I love the AAA concept you just did there. Acknowledge, allow, and what was the last one?
Align.
Align. I mean, yeah, you can't get wrong with that. I mean, it's perfect. And so those concepts can actually apply to everything. In personal life, but really in the business space can be great, especially for people that are going through tough times. And I think everybody, I don't care who they are, they're going through a tough time somehow.
Yeah.
We always think, and we just did a show about, psychology and, psychosomatic stuff. And frankly, everybody's going through their own personal life. And it's not a cozy line. It's not just, a normal thing. It's not a pool, with no waves. There's a lot of wrinkles in our lives, a lot of waves that can have, it's like a tsunami ongoing with us. And so you have to deal with it all the time. And most of us have a facade. Most of us try to compensate, and kind of show a different side of ourselves and interact. And again, that actually keeps like a volcano, right? It's inside, inside. But sometimes it will come out. And now in your case, I mean, you were having a difficult time. I'm sure the pressures were just, too much. Again, I don't even know how you dealt with it. I mean, maybe you can tell us, like, how did you get out of it, eventually? Because how long did it take you even to get out of it? I mean, that's just a curious question.
So it took me more than 11 years to even identify, like, okay, something is wrong with me. Why am I having these random breakdowns? I need to do something about it. At that time, my company was offering 8 complimentary therapy sessions. So I'd be so honest with you. I went to those sessions with a completely negative attitude. Like, I don't know what the therapist is going to say. Like, 5 years ago, I had a loss. This was in the year 2022. 5 years, I had a loss. And then, I still have some panic attacks, but I have a job. I have everything. I have 3 beautiful kids. I have a house. I have a family, but I still feel it. So I was like, I don't know what she's going. She might just say you just want to complain in life. You have everything. I went with that attitude. Like, okay, I'll do one session. I'll get out, and I'll never go back. That first session itself, my therapist was shocked. That inter discovery call that we had, she was like, I don't know how you have managed living until now, like with all of this that you have stored inside of you. At that time, I didn't even bring the loss in 2011. I was just focused that, okay, this, I'm only maybe grieving about, or I need to grieve more about my twins. And I just need to know what's really happening. And after that, it was like I got that validation from her at that time, like, okay, so whatever I'm feeling right now is valid. You're thinking, I was thinking I was just being stupid, or I was overreacting, and that's why I was even hesitant to even confide in other people. Like, I don't know what they're going to say. Like, we always have this, what will people think, right? If if you're behaving a certain way. So after she said, Shruti, it's completely fine. What you're feeling is completely normal, and you need time to process all what's going on within you. And that's where, when I started doing those sessions, is I'm like, okay, this is beautiful, where I'm having this non-judgmental space. I can just, I used to, the first few sessions were just ranting and crying, and it was like just this something so uh, for so long I had stored inside of me, it was just coming out. And then began like breaking it down into pieces, and then the transformation where I remember in one particular session I had written down, I'd taken a red marker and written down, I killed my babies. And that was what was stored inside of me. I didn't even know it like that is what I was carrying in myself. And from there to writing with a blue pen, I did everything to protect my babies. And that's where I felt it became beautiful. And then the honoring piece came, where we worked together. We worked together, me and my therapist, like, what are some ways I can do to honor my babies? And After that, I realized that the loss back in 2011 was also not processed for me. And then we focused on that. And that's where I realized, okay, that's what makes it not just, I was constantly saying 5 years, 5 years, but it was actually 11 years. I was not talking about it at work. I was still celebrating my due date of my first child. It's July 28, 2012 was my due date. Every year, I used to have a piece of chocolate and cry that day, and looking at other children who are 2012 born used to sting a lot, like, why can that person have a baby in 2012 and not me? you know those are the triggers that haunted me for the longest time, even after my twins. The word twin, like we say twinning, I'm twinning with you today, or I used to hate that word twin. um, there were movies, some of my favorite Bollywood movies that had twins, that I used to just switch off. I couldn't handle them anymore. Harry Potter is one of my favorite series. I can really watch, me and my daughter can watch Harry Potter any time of the day. I stopped watching it because every time the twin brothers came, George and Fred, I would freeze. I would either try to fast forward it, like just disappear. I cannot have identical twin boys. I I don't want to look at them. And then I would feel guilty at the same time. Like, why am I being this way? Like, why can't I be happy for others? Pregnancy announcements were tough, where anybody would announce a pregnancy, and I would be like, why can she get pregnant with twins and I cannot? So overall, it was an emotional roller coaster, but I kept to myself at work. I did not bring that up with really anyone. Like, maybe some pieces of it I used to share with some close members at work, but I was closed. Like, okay, this is my limit. I'm not going to talk more about it, and just store it within myself. And I was just fortunate that the sessions came my way, and I'm thankful to myself that even though I went with a negative attitude, I tried it. Because I remember I called up that hotline 3 times and hung up before making the fourth call and saying, because I was like, what am I going to say? So they will say hello, and I'm hanging up. I'm like, I don't know what to say. But then I
Well,
finally made that call.
well, Shruti, I love that. That actually aligns to that acknowledge, right? Piece, right?
Yeah.
You were in denial. You refused because you were debating this and you thought you had this. You could have figured out yourself, but it was just there. You were, again, to your point, all these things that you mentioned now. I know at that time you didn't think about it that way. They were just basically like you hear these words and they're triggers to your point, and they were just like you were reacting to them, like, because why me, right? Most people say, like, why is it happening to me, not to the other people, right? And but then until you started talking about it with an expert, and by the way, whatever company that afforded the idea of these services that you had, I think that's a good company to actually work for. And frankly, I think we should have a lot more of that available around the workspace, right? But it did. This is exactly a good example of why that helps. And I think mental health. Most of us, we disconnect from the idea of mental health because it's taboo. And again, we have listen. I'm not sure how well mental health is perceived from in your culture, right? Like I know in our culture, it's like you don't talk about mental health. You're supposed to be solid. Now you that's like you cannot say shrink. You cannot say I'm going to see someone because you're crazy. You're cuckoo, right? And so that's like how we have it, right? So a lot of people may be conditioned to I am never going to be able to talk to someone because that's like going to be like, oh my God, no, she's lost it, right? Or he's lost it. But that's the thing. I think the good news is in the US, for example, it is an open thing. People talk about this. They do see someone. And actually, I've in the last 7 years, we've had, I think we're in season 6 now, of mental health, shows, and we've addressed almost every question that can come to mind. Of course, there's millions of them, so I don't think we've covered all of them. We've covered a lot of the topics, and it's always there's always something that we can learn from these things. I mean, that we have this power hour once a month, and to me, I use this stuff. Like every time I have a show about mental health, it really reinforces who you are. It reinforces your behavior. It reinforces, it gives you little tools to operate because we're, I will not say we're damaged, but we are, inflicted daily. We have a lot of, stuff. I mean, you and I were talking. I mean, the UAE, right? There's a war going on. I mean, we still don't know the status of it now. We're actually on pause. Hopefully, it's the end. But you know what I'm saying? All these things, like I'm talking about it, that means it's in my mind. Now we
Yeah.
ignore it. We avoid to deal with it. We try to, like, almost like do the ostrich effect, like, put your head in the sand and, the rest is history, like nothing's going on. It is going, but it's how we deal with things. And most of us, I think we make the mistake of just building that stuff in. It's like, pressure cooker. A lot of pressure is building, building, building. And sometimes, I mean, it can wind up bad, and we hear stories about bad outcomes. But the idea is recommended, find an expert. Like, for example, a coach like you can make a difference in somebody's life, because your story right now can be a part, because a lot of people will not trust someone to just tell them what to do and how to do it, right? But when you tell them your story, like, I'm gonna listen to you. I mean, that is a very difficult thing to top what you've been through, right? Two big losses, and it's 11 years of trauma that's been inside that you were holding. That's a lot of stuff. I mean, people talk about grudge, holding a grudge about one comment someone said to you. This is a big deal, and to your point, it's constant reminder around you, because there are kids everywhere. There are
Yeah.
people, women working with you that actually go pregnant, and every time that happens, I can listen. I'm not a woman, but I can feel you. I can feel
Yeah.
your problem, right? I mean, I can understand it, and I can see the other stuff. And again, from here, also, I want to just point something to people who are in charge in companies. Know that, again, this is just my message to all leaders out there. You are not using robots and machines. These are humans. Try to be human. Try to understand business is not everything. Money is not everything. Yes, and that's someone can say, like, you know what, get lost in hurricane. Well, I'm already lost. It's okay. I'm lost in my own word. But here's the good news. You know what happens to people can happen to any one of us. And by the way, even as a leader, know that you're also human. You can go through tough times, and sometimes the other people can lift you up. But so always put yourself in other people's shoes, understand, and give them room to work. At least give them assistance, you know, to maybe you could have been prevented this, years before.
Mhm.
Maybe if you had access early on to the same therapy, or right? Am I wrong?
No, absolutely right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there you go. So leaders out there, whatever it takes, think about it. Your best investment in a company is not your overhead, structure you're building. It's the people that work for you, and it's not even for you, with you, because without them, you don't exist. And that's the thing. I think the most asset that we have in a company is our employees, right? Because they're really, if they're satisfied, they're happy, the results are going to be happier. The clients will be happier because they're going to do and perform better. But if they're sad, they're, like we should know our people. Like you should know and get closer to your, employees, your staff. I mean, some people say, well, you can't be their friends. Well, it has nothing to do with being friends. Friends is someone that I actually go hang out with, at night, me and them, and nobody knows what we do, right? But yes, but they are your colleagues. They are, like, your second family. You need to at least know who they are, what they have, and ask questions. What's going on? Everything good? Everything happy? I mean, it's okay to inquire. It's not a big deal. Obviously, you're not going to ask them about some intimate stuff, because that would be a whole different, labor law issue. But I'm talking about being personal, personal to a degree that is professional, being empathic, being, nice, being at least curious about, their how's your day going? I mean, it's simple. It's not a big deal. Like I've seen people that walk right by you, like leaders that walk by you, don't even say hi.
Mhm.
Uh,
I think
that annoys the hell out of me.
it's just that communicate. It sounds because companies do have check-ins, but sometimes it feels like it's a pressure for the managers and the leaders to have those check-ins. Like, okay, I need to have a check-in, and then they don't know what to say in those check-ins. So it becomes very robotic. Like you said, somebody walked past and they didn't even say hi, but because they don't want to really, but because the company has now mandated it, like you need to have check-ins with individuals, they'll have a put a 15-minute check-in, and that conversation would be like more about very robotic. Like, okay, you're doing this work. Are you liking this work? Okay, good. If you're not liking, you can talk like give me three bullet points. What you it seems like that. Like, okay, give me three things that you don't like about it. Okay, okay. Then where do you want to be by end of the year? And mostly the check-ins are also around the year end. If you're getting for a promotion, then they'll have more check-ins. It doesn't need to be that complicated. I mean, in that 15 minutes, I've had like as a mentor when I was the lead of my team, I used to just have impromptu check-ins. First of all, my team members knew they can just ping me and I can hop on a call if I'm able to. And just sometimes let them speak. And like you're saying, how is your day going? Just I was just thinking, how are you liking the work? And just stop right there and let them like kind of vent out and just say. And that is how you build that relationship at work, that bonding at work, where you come to know about that person, that personality, and then they might also, and then the questions that you want to know, like where they want to be. Okay, by end of year, maybe you don't want to be in this technical role, maybe you want to go non-technical. That is what they're going to vent out, and then you'll come up with some plan. But it's organic when you're kind of letting them speak and then taking that call. Okay, so let's see how we can get you there. But instead of that, it's it's like those check-ins for me, they were primarily like, okay, there are going to be like five questions on the call, like seems like an agenda more, and less sort of a check-in, like what you really want and where do you want to be, and sometimes it's not even check-in, it's just like I'm mad at this person or this, and then even if that person is comfortable talking about their personal life, and my personal life things are going on, and that is also enough, because that's what the employee wants, that's what the team member wants, to just have a place to went out, and then that the manager can be considerate, understanding that, of course, keeping it confidential, but then the you're an efficient manager, I would say, once you understand your team's needs and know them personally in that way, rather than just having keeping it super professional. So it can be done in a beautiful way, rather than, I know companies protocols and what should be said, what should not be said, everything makes sense, but sometimes creating that space isn't, you're not going to violate any ethics or anything, it's just giving them that 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 non-judgmental space where they are able to say something, and it's going
You
to
know,
be
well, thank you. It's funny you said something about, that manager will be a good manager, right? I would call that not a manager. I would call that a true leader, because
yeah.
now they actually evolve to what really leadership is about. Is really to be able to create that environment and help these folks to get, to a better place. And by the way, some tips, tricks I use, and it's not their tricks. Actually, I'm so genuine about them. It's not even, it's real. I'm not saying it, and this is a public show. People can criticize me anytime, and I have no shame in my game, because I'm not saying anything that I haven't preached, or I mean practice rather. And an example, I mean, so we're in sales, right? And one of the things that we do a lot of is team bonding, team building, right? And it's not just team building; it's really, getting to have a good time. So we work hard and we go out together. We get to know each other a little more. On a personal note, right? While we actually, of course, there's limitations. I mean, there's certain things that you cannot cross, lines that you can cross. But the idea is you actually spend some time with the people. You get to know them, their families, invite your families, their kids, my kids, and so on and so forth. I used to do those things, the outings. We do different things together, right? Go to movies. We go, different places, games, because it creates a different level of connection, and we become one. My goal and their goal is one goal. We're tied, together to one thing. And actually, knowing what your staff is going through, you can assist them, and you can understand how to assist them better if you know. Because if you can help them, you're helping yourself anyways, right? Because you're helping your department, you're helping the company, you're resolving some of the issues that are actually just, it's like we call this objections, then, are basically unanswered questions. Well, that's the same thing. When people are reacting or they're not giving, there's an objection there. There's something missing, a link that is lost, that is not clicking. If we help find the link and put it together, guess what? We cool. We can make this chain work again, and solid. But it's up to us. And that's again, so it's a message to all of you out there. If you lead a company or a department, get to know your people. And also they should know about you because you're not, a metal leader. You're not robotic. You're a human too. You might have your own problems. And if you bring your problems to the office, you're probably going to snap at people too and things like that. But if people know you, they might think, oh, he's just, it's just, he's not having a good day. Maybe like they can even have the courage to come to you. Hey, you know, Hurricane, what's wrong? I mean, you all right? I mean, is there anything we can do? Because it's not a downstream upstream. It's together. There's no them versus
Exactly.
us. And I think that's the problem that we have. These hierarchies like, well, I can't go to that point. They're my staff. No, it doesn't work that way. They're just as human as you. Now, I always give the example of military where they're all military soldiers. They're all warriors. They just
Yeah.
have different ranks. The ranks is basically a time that you spend in the experience in the military. Doesn't mean that you're not a soldier. If it had to fight, everybody carries the same gun and goes out to fight, right? Now, war is not a good example, but in strategy and in business, we use a lot of those analogies. But it works. So thank you for really sharing that view of how it should be, and really, it's a great message out there, and I think your work is going to help and contribute towards maybe some of these companies seeing it and understanding it and probably even applying it because they should. And I guarantee it, and I know you can vouch for this. The results are there. Now let's talk about your work and any example that you've actually applied that you can really share with the audiences that really you saw a difference in implementation and the results after implementation. Anything that you can share.
So with me, I would say when I started talking about my own loss, I had people come up to me, and there were people who had known for 15, 20 years that were, and I'm like, how come I didn't know that you experienced a loss? And I was like shocked. I got to know my grandmother experienced 5 losses, and then many other family members had experienced loss. And I'm like, how come I'm 30 years old, I'm 35 years old. How come I didn't know about such such tragedies in our family, and they were unspoken about, like that, like not talked about because we don't talk about it. So I think that those conversations just had started happening, and then I started creating some social media content, and then there are these people who are commenting that I've never spoken about my loss to anyone. They're DMing me and saying that just because I watch your content, I'm able to just say it out, because 20 years back I had a loss, but I still feel that emptiness. But I feel like just saying it to you, and it feels nice. So I think those texts and those DMs and people around me who are just confiding in me right now, that because they know that I speak openly about it, is really making an impact to me. Like, okay, I'm genuinely creating this space where people are able to come to me and say something. And that's what my eventual goal is, to create this very, very safe space for everyone. And when I talk about the 3 A's framework, I mean, if, in a coaching session, of course, I'll be guiding through them, like if they join my program. But sometimes I do these mini sessions with people when I'm just meeting out to people, and I'm like, how do you implement this, right? So I'll give them certain tools. I also have a PDF that I share with them. So, like, you just follow these quick questions for yourself. Sit and reflect on those questions, and you'll get the answers, and that actually starts getting everything out of yourself, like what you have. And then there are some people who are saying that those questions really helped us figure out what was in there sitting inside internally. And we were able to at least put something on paper, and it just felt like a huge chunk out of out of their body, like something off their chest. So these are the meaningful, um, stories that again give me so much content and peace. Like, okay, I'm making an impact, even if it's helping one person that even decides to seek help, or it's just impacted my own life.
Well, again, that's a perfect one. I mean, what you're talking about is these are people that you already started transforming based on your content and your work because they hear you, they feel the story, they feel it, they can relate to it. Now they can face it in a different way, in a different light, which now that's already a change on how they were versus what they are, who they are, and what they do now. So that's actually really what the impact is. Really, it's the idea of I was doing it this way, now I have this new formula and I'm going to be doing it and facing it a different light. And therefore, now I'm happier, I'm better. I can handle this differently. I can face it. I can change. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm not having a difficult time because now I understand. I can do better. I can be happier. You also, I mean, this discussion today can be a trigger or an incentive or even a motivation to someone, an inspiration that they've gone through similar stuff or tougher time or less. It doesn't matter what level they are, but they got lost. They're not sure what to do. I mean, your journey coming here and you willing to make a transformation of other people to better is already an inspiration, a goal that all of us have. You said if one person changed or one person had impact, it's already the results you want. And actually, I think you can do a lot more than one because I think you're doing that already by changing a lot of folks. And that's the whole idea, is the message to go out there to really just get the action going, talk about problems. Like you said, you went to a therapy session that changed your life, that changed the way you had your outlooks about everything. And where you are today is like not only you change yourself, but now you build a whole system where you can change others. So now, how does the program work? Is it a commitment to a few weeks? Is it a program? I mean, I know you mentioned a couple of things, but is it like a long term? Is it short term? Is it different sessions? Just for the people that are watching and listening, what can they expect, and how can they even connect you? I know there's the QR on the screen right now, so that they just have to take a snapshot. I think that's going to be a quick way to get to you. But like in general, like what to expect from the program?
So currently, I have a 6-month program and a 1-year program, um,
Nice.
and I'm getting specialized training to become a pregnancy loss practitioner, and I'm developing a 12-week intensive program for bereaved moms. So that's something in progress, and as it builds, I'm really excited about that one because that's going to go really deep with this framework and many other frameworks and tools and assessments that I'm learning through this specialized training about some emotional waves that because grief is not linear. Everybody is at a different phase. So it cannot be treated like, okay, this is your starting point. 6 months from now, you'll be done. It's never done. For anyone, even for me, after this conversation, I might have a moment where I might have a breakdown. But what now I know is how to handle my emotions in a healthy way rather than escaping from them, or rather than just saying, okay, let me do some cooking or let me just log into some platform and do the work. I will not escape, but I will do something meaningful. I might even write in my journal. I might look at my baby's pictures. I might go to my Tulsi plants downstairs, look at the pots. I might do something meaningful. And that is what you handle your emotions, allow them to feel. And I think that's really beautiful. So that's what the program entails. Like, how do you because these are triggers that will happen lifelong. You will hear pregnancy announcements. You will hear all this is ongoing. It's not like popping in a Tylenol for your headache and okay, in 6 months your headache is gone for permanently. That's not how the mental health works. It is ongoing. The triggers will come, they will appear, but having these strategies in place is what will make it make you handle your emotions in a healthy way. So that's what I do, and I'm very excited to kind of work on this program and get this training, and like it just gives my life so much meaning to what I'm doing. I just feel blessed that I had that realization and I'm able to do the work that I love to do.
Well, so again, I said I commend you before. I continue. I second that now because to your point, it's well. First of all, I don't think you're gonna have a bad moment after this because this is all positive. There's a lot of energy that's positive here because you're really are changing. Other folks. By listening to you, by just taking this as a lead, and of course those that are willing to work with you. By the way, I didn't know that an actual certification level where you can actually just be specialized in bereaving mothers and things like that. So it's crazy that people don't realize this is happening more than people can think. And by the way, as a father, as a guy, people think, well, you're the guy. Well, guess what? We're parents too. We're fathers. When our spouses they lose, the baby, we all lose the same. As a matter of fact, before I had my first child, my second child, we had a loss also. So I can relate to it from a father's side. And it is a difficult place to be because you want to be there for your partner and kind of work with them to that phase. And it's not easy. And it's just something that goes. So I think this is beyond just moms. I think moms and dads, can,
Absolutely.
can, can certainly be part of this because and that's the other thing. The fathers are going to be with the moms in a long journey, so they need to also be coherent and kind of in the same frequency to vibe well and continue, for the next, lifestyle, right? So it's a very difficult place. Matter of fact, even me, like this, I'm old, but my parents had a loss before me. I like they sometimes they used to tell me like if your brother was here, he would be older than you. That's when I was a kid. That he would be like this age, right? So when I was a kid, I kind of grew up with that concept. So they always had that child in their mind,
Yeah.
right? It's not something that goes away, folks, and it's just how we deal with it, and we accept it, to a degree. But again, everybody's different pace, as you said. But I think it's really moms first, but the partners are there, and they
I
should
do.
align.
I do. I was having this conversation with someone like, what does the father usually say? My wife experienced a loss. He would never say we experienced a loss, like I lost a baby too, because that's how the upbringing and the training is for males and for fathers, that you have to be strong. You have to be stronger for the wife, for your children. And so you're not allowed to even be vulnerable, not talk about it, not even consider, just because you're not physically carrying the child, but you have also lost a baby. So I think for fathers, it's a whole different angle which needs to be addressed and talked about. Anything, just even standardizing that I lost a baby, saying that, right? Not my wife had a miscarriage.
Well, I said we lost.
Physically, yeah, my wife might physically had a miscarriage, but I lost a baby too. So I think that needs to change too in society, and that's what has been kind of intriguing for me. The more and more people that I talk, I'm like, yeah, that's so. I mean, when we talk about it, it doesn't strike us, but I've been pondering over it for a while now, and I'm like, yeah, this is such a standard sentence for the fathers to say, and that's how the society has also normalized it. And so it would feel even awkward to say like I lost a baby for a father,
No,
but it's
but
true.
you're right. You're right. We say my wife. How's she doing? She lost the baby,
Yeah.
right? That's kind of like how it is. Like well, no, we did lose the baby. It's both of us. We
Yeah.
both expecting. We were happy to have this baby, and the baby is not here. But you're right. So that's again. So we talked for over an hour, and only now I actually brought the idea of the actual partners because I am a dad, and I know that I've experienced that. But you're right. It's not. We don't see it the same way. We just kind of work towards the emotion of our partner more than ours. And again, that's the other thing. People think men are like, these solid, steel buildings. You know, we're just as mushy folks. I mean, and someone can say, "Oh, Hurricane, did you just share your personal?" It's okay. Every man has an actual, very soft side of them. Yes, we are designed, to be a little feistier and stronger and tougher, but there's a lot of that as a facade. But inside of us, we still are human. We still have emotions. Maybe our hormones are different, but at the end of the day, we're still, men cry. That's the other thing. Like people say, men don't cry. No, men cry. They just don't do it in public. you
Exactly.
know.
And I think it's also the training, right? I mean, I was, it's always said, right? When a little boy cries, immediately it's told to him, are you a girl? Why are you crying? And that's where the training begins for guys. Like, okay, I'm not supposed to cry. I mean, maybe the hormonal levels are different, and the physiologically men and women are different. But if a man wants to be vulnerable, let them be. Why do we have to push rules that, okay, men don't cry? Put a standardization that you should never cry, and whoever cries is a girl. Or like, oh, why do we need to do that? Let them be vulnerable, let them show some emotions, and it will only be helpful for the women to connect more. Like, if men also show their emotions. But that's how the world has been built, and then there have been some silly standards set, and we all just feel forced to abide by them. Like, otherwise we are being reckless, or we're being abnormal, or and all these tags get associated with us, so we just want to follow that template and of life, right? I mean,
Well, listen to you. It's funny because you watch a movie as a man or woman. If there is emotions, you will tear up. I mean, you will cry. And when they look at you, you'll be like, no, something went in my eyes. That's our comic shoot. Well, I have a trick for you guys out there. Just put glasses on. So if something is emotional, you just like, keep your glasses on and you can tear up all you want. Nobody sees it. So you can keep your ego in check, but at the same time, you can still do it. So for those of us that are like macho man, we can certainly, uh, be real and realistic. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with actually getting your emotions out. Listen, I lived with my mom for 53 years, and she passed recent. It took a time to process, and sometimes I'm by myself. No one is there. I see her pictures, and I get emotional about it, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. My wife knows about it, and that's it. Now you try to be the tough guy as much as you can, but you know what? When you lose a loved one, a family member, a child, it's not as people think. It's not. Sometimes you hear other people, but it doesn't only happen to the other folks. It happens to a lot of us, and there's a good chance if you live long enough, you're gonna have the experience of losses, and there's nothing you can do about it. So the more we get prepared to it, the more we are aware of how we deal with it, the more we use services that can help us, the better we can be, and certainly we can impact, because our life is not for us. We actually interacting with the world at any
mm,
given point. Because here's the thing: you take emotions, you're on the road, you got rage, you can do something stupid right there and get hurt or hurt someone, right? So that's the thing. You keep your emotions in check. You can keep control of stuff. Your behavior is going to be better at work. Also, again, people have a fight, they have arguments, they go home, they have something to the office, and they start lashing up on people. Not good. So those are the things, folks. So again, Shruti is available. Her work is available. Let's support her. Let's make sure that, if we have, especially moms that have, gone through this process, you know, and you're not sure, now we have someone that resource that you can literally go to and operate. Now, I'm assuming it doesn't have to be in the US because you do this online and virtual, so you can be anywhere in the world. So here you go. So if you don't think there's
that's
a
right.
solution for you out there, you have one. All right.
Yep.
Any, I know we passed the hour. Any good words you want to keep leave our audiences with today?
So as you were just talking about taking care of yourself, is here's my favorite phrase that I use most of the time. Self-care isn't being selfish. I think it's extremely important to take care of ourselves so that we are better people for others, and keep upgrade yourself. And in IT terms that I use, upgrade from version 1.0 to 2.0, and keep upgrading yourself, and only compare yourself to yourself, no, not with others, because I think that's extremely important to learn and grow. I believe life learning is lifelong, so there's no age associated with it.
And that's perfectly said. As a matter of fact, every day, every minute we learn. And by the way, you learn from anyone. You know, they don't have to be older, they could be younger, they could be at any given age, any culture. You're learning. If you're open to learn, you will learn every day. And you never stop learning. And thank you for actually, giving that advice, because it's a big
Yeah.
deal. And you're right. We're supposed to take care of that, ourselves, and not be selfish. As a matter of fact, you got to take care of yourself if you want to take care of others. So thank you so much. Yeah, Shruti, this has been fun. Great discussion. Thank you so much for sharing your personal life. I mean, with the world here, but it is a story I think that can inspire other folks out there to come forward, to seek help, to really make it a transformation and be better. That's about it. So again, folks, this is the end of our show. Hope you had fun with us. Shruti, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Well, the pleasure was mine. And so that's it. We'll be talking soon. New day, new show and topic. Bye for now.